Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Irene. I think many DIYers have faced the problem of organizing their tools and appliances. I had this problem as well, and today I'll show you how we made a hanging wall rack for storing brushes, tools and craft supplies. My workshop is quite small and at the same time I have a lot of brushes, stacks, sponges, rulers and so on. At first I put everything into the file cabinets, but it turned out to be inconvenient. I had to rummage through a pile of brushes in search of the right one every time, and you can't place wet brushes after washing the air, so I arranged the brushes and tools in mugs and containers, but they got in the way and I dropped them and spilled all the contents a couple of times. And after we made the paint storage rack, an idea came to me. We can make a similar wall hanging rack. It will be perfect for storing all of my brushes and tools, and it will look nice too. We've decided to make the shelf similar to the paint storage rack, to have a kind of a set, but the size of this wall hanging rack will be different, customized for my needs. We bought all the materials from the hardware store. Here is what we'll use. L-shape angle profiles 1 by 1 inch, lumber 3/4 by 6 inches, and 1 3/4 inch planks. I'll start with marking all the parts. The whole structure is going to be 24 inches high with 3 shelves. We've chosen the size based on the space we have. We want the rack to be quite roomy, and of course it should look good as a background when filming. So I'll need 2 pieces for the sides and 3 pieces for the shelves. Next, I'm cutting the lumber. To make the length of the parts match perfectly, I'm tightening several pieces together with clamps and cutting off all the parts at once. I'll assemble the rack using a pocket hole crack jig set. This is a super convenient device. How have I ever lived without it? I'm clamping the jig on the edge of the lumber. First you want to adjust the depth for drilling. I'm drilling all the shelves at each corner on the wrong side. The only drawback of this method is these rather noticeable holes on the wrong side. You can either hide them with special pocket hole plugs or simply glue thin wooden planks on top. Maybe I'll do it, although I think they will not be very visible on the underside anyway. After that, I'm giving all the parts a good sand. I don't know about you, but I love this process. The wood becomes so smooth, almost silky to the touch. I can't resist stroking the freshly sanded plank every time. So I have here the 2 side walls and the 3 shelves, and now I'll assemble the thing. I'll start from the bottom shelf. I'm placing an extra piece of lumber to have the shelf attached with a little allowance at the edge of the side wall. It doesn't affect anything actually, I just like it that way. While fastening the shelf, a little trouble happened.
Насквозь просверлила.
I measured the thickness of the lumber and it turned out that it was 19 millimeters, not 20 as stated. So I tightened the rest of the screws very carefully so that they wouldn't go out. Fortunately, the holes are very small, so after sanding and staining they are almost invisible if you don't know that they are here. We've continued the next day. I'm attaching the second side wall. Then I'm fastening the top shelf just the same way. Here I'm making an allowance as well. This one is a little bigger than the one on the bottom part. I'm placing 2 pieces of lumber for support here. All that is left is to attach the third shelf. It will sit exactly in the middle. I'm marking its location and fastening it to place. Here is how the base looks now. In order for the items on the shelves not to fall off it, I'll make small bumpers, exactly the same as I did for the paint rack. I'm marking the required length of the planks and cutting them off. Vzik! I'll glue the planks to the rack using tight bond wood glue. I'm applying the glue. Here you want to be careful so as the glue doesn't show out anywhere, otherwise stain will not work in these areas later and you'll end up with ugly spots. I'm attaching all the 3 planks to the front side of the rack like this. I'm wiping off the excess glue with a damp cloth if it has shown anywhere. And finally I'm tightening it with clamps until dry. Then it's time for my operator to change the camera for a wire brush. The L brackets we've bought are quite rusty and covered with scales, so before attaching them to the rack we want to clean them thoroughly. Gary scrubbed them first with a wire brush, then with metal dish sponges, and this is a rather hard and tiring task. After the brackets are peeled off properly, Gary is wiping them thoroughly using a solvent, and now they are finally ready for further work. We'll need 4 pieces for the rack, so Gary is measuring the desired length right on the rack and cutting the brackets off with a grinder. It was quite late at that moment. Just look how spectacular the sparks look in the dusk light. Meanwhile, the rack has dried and I'm giving it another sand to remove any fraying, and then I'm staining the rack. Here I'm using a water-based stain in oak. This is the same one I used for the paint rack as I want them to be this set, as I told you in the beginning. I'm giving it 2 coats and let it dry well. By the way, I want to share with you my little joy. Finally, I've got blue flowers on my hydrangea. I used hydrangea bluing formula treatments with no success before, as my bushes are so big, but this year I've tried out sulfur powder fertilizer and hooray! One of the bushes is blue-violet this year, unlike my largest bush, which is still pink. Apparently the amount of sulfur wasn't enough for it. Meanwhile, we moved to the workshop to finish the work. We're going to attach the brackets to the shelf like this. I'm taking off the old little shelf that I have here. And trying out the new one. We will decorate the brackets with domed head screws to make it look like rivets, as we did for the paint rack. Gary is marking the holes and punching them before drilling. This is to avoid the drill bit from jumping off and to make the holes perfectly even. And then he's drilling the brackets. Here he's using 2 drill bits, first a thin one and then the one of normal size. Of course, there's a lot of fuss with metal brackets. If you decide to make a similar rack, you can replace them with wooden ones, painting them gunmetal or black. After that, Gary is drilling the rack itself and is finally fastening the screws. We want to replace them with authentic vintage ones later, but for now these will do. And at last, Gary attaches the rack to the wall using L brackets, as many as 6 pieces. The rack is quite heavy itself, and after filling it will become even more weighty, so I want everything to be as reliable as possible. Well, and before filling the rack with contents, I'll show you my recent thrifty purchase. I've found super cute boot pencil holders at a thrift shop, and I think they'll look great here. They are cast iron, both are right-handed and of different colors, and I've decided to make a single pair for storing brushes. First, I'm painting the boots bright red. I gave them 2 layers of acrylic paint. Isn't their shape amazing? And due to their weight, they are very stable. After drying, I'm aging the boots a little with a brown wax. I'm applying it generously and wiping immediately with a cloth. The wax will stay in the folds and crevices and will rub off the bulges. In case there's too much anywhere, I'm adding a clear wax and rubbing a little. This makes the aging more subtle. And finally, I'm filling the rack. Now I have the space for all my mugs and containers with brushes, stacks, tweezers, palette knives and other things, as well as small boxes with craft materials. This is an XT box. I've painted it for zinc and I keep painting sponges in it. I can also place finished restored toys onto this rack, as I am a toy restorer, to admire them a little before they go back to the owners, and those that are still waiting for me to take care of them. The whole project took 2 days and just about $30. I haven't yet finished filling the rack. I'm thinking about adding hooks to hang some of the tools, but it is so convenient already, much better than before, and I think it is also an excellent background for the videos. What do you think?
You can make a full-sized standing rack just like this for storing spices or cosmetic jars. We did just that for storing paints. In case you haven't seen this video, I'll link it below. Thanks for being here and hope to see you in my next video. Bye!